Great clinical research professionals aren't born, they're built. In each episode, hear from leading experts in clinical trial management as they inspire and motivate you to become an effective leader. Welcome to the Clinical Trial Podcast. Here to help you accelerate your career is your host, Kunal Sampat.
Country and site selection for clinical trials is an important aspect of clinical operations. When it comes to country selection for industry-sponsored studies, the default option generally tends to be the United States, the United Kingdom, or countries in the Western Europe. However, if a sponsor decides to expand outside these default geographical areas, it may be possible to expedite patient recruitment while getting access to high-quality data. One such country to consider when conducting global clinical trials is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's modern healthcare system, diverse patient population, and research-savvy healthcare professionals make it a great place to conduct clinical trials. To learn more about clinical trial requirements in Saudi Arabia, I invited Professor Majed Al-Jeraisy on the show. Dr. Al-Jeraisy is the Associate Professor of Pharmacy Practice, College of Pharmacy, King Saud Ben Abdulaziz University of Health Sciences, and Pediatric Clinical Pharmacy Consultant in the King Abdullah Specialized Children's Hospital. He was appointed as the chairman of the research office at the King Abdullah International Medical Research Center, also known as KAIMRC, in 2007, and was appointed as the director of clinical trial services in 2018. Professor Majed Al-Jeraisy obtained his bachelor's degree in pharmaceutical science and master of science in clinical pharmacy from King Saud University, Riyadh. He then obtained his doctor of pharmacy degree from University of Tennessee, USA, followed by 2 years of residency and fellowship in pediatric pharmacotherapy from the same place. Dr. Al-Jeraisy has also completed a Master of Science degree in medical education from King Saud Ben Abdulaziz University for Health Sciences, Riyadh. He is a reviewer of local and international peer-reviewed journals. Also, he has authored and co-authored numerous and relevant scientific research projects in the field of pediatrics, pharmacotherapy, general medicine, biochemistry, pharmacology, and toxicology that were published in reputable journals. Please join me in welcoming Professor Majed Al-Jeraisy on the Clinical Trial Podcast. Dr. Majed, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on the Clinical Trial Podcast. I know it's really late your time in Saudi Arabia. It's about 9:15 p.m. at night, I believe. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Kunal, for the invitation. I'm really excited. It's my pleasure to be on your podcast.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really fascinated about and really excited about the future is how can we truly have global clinical trials, which was one of the reasons I thought it would be great to have you as a guest on the podcast. I know there's a huge initiative within Saudi Arabia to bring more sponsors in to do clinical research in Saudi Arabia. So I'm hoping this episode will allow people to have a glimpse of what it takes to do clinical research in Saudi Arabia, and I think that's our goal. Before we get into all the questions, maybe you can tell me a little bit about the Saudi Arabia health system. Maybe that's kind of a good place to start, like traditions, spoken languages, what kind of infrastructure is there for research, and so on. Maybe we can give people a high-level overview of the lay of the land.
Thank you, Kunal. It's a great, in fact, area to start with. And before I forget, in fact, this podcast came in the right time where we are celebrating now the Clinical Trials Day, which was yesterday, in fact, the 20th of May. And I think everybody is excited about it and trying to encourage and also consider that day as a memorial for the first day of starting clinical trials back in the 1970s. So this is, I think, it came in the right time. So the infrastructure, or maybe the tradition in Saudi Arabia, where most people, especially in the Western population, they are not aware of what is the infrastructure look like in Saudi Arabia in terms of the healthcare system, in terms of the spoken language, in terms of the policy in place, and the hospital setting. To begin with, the spoken language, the official spoken language in all medical care facilities are the English language. And it has been the official communication language in all hospitals overall the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. For one reason, most of the workers, it used to be, in fact, in the few years ago, majority are expats, where they are, I mean, from different countries, from different maybe ethnic community. So the spoken language is English. And now more of Saudis have fill these positions, but still the English language is the predominant and the official language for communication. So it's not a matter of that we need a translator or we have difficulties in understanding each other. So it is much easier. When it comes to patients, communicating with patients, of course, a good percentage of patients, they can speak the English language, but others we have to have a translator in between, or sometimes, of course, if they are talking to their same nationality, so it's the spoken language is the Arabic. So this is basically the spoken language. With regards to the healthcare system in Saudi Arabia, a lot of people, they are probably not aware of the healthcare system and the infrastructure, which is really very high standards. Our hospitals, the setup, the practice, because for many reasons. One, most, if not all, of our physicians and also our healthcare providers get their training abroad, mostly from North America and from Europe. So they are like transferring their experiences back to the country, which is really lifting up and upscaling the standard of practice. This is one. Second, majority of hospitals adopting the North American system, where it is well-developed system. Others, of course, they are developing also, they are adopting the European, but majority are North American system, where we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we adopt the North American system, and in fact, it gives us a good start to build up on our infrastructure with regards to the standard of practice and following guidelines, protocols, managing patients. The other important aspect of this is the healthcare system provide no cost, free of cost for all Saudi nationals. So unlike other countries, you have to pay for your care, but in our country, the government pays for the healthcare or the care of the patients. And now, of course, there is existed insurance companies, and it's expanding more, but most of the Saudi nationals get their care in the hospitals for free. So these are the main, I think, points that I need to emphasize on with regards to the infrastructure.
Yeah, the second point you mentioned about North America's, did you say standard? Like, do they follow North American guidelines? Is that what you were trying to explain for the second point?
Exactly. Yes, we do, in fact, following the North American guidelines in terms of the most of the policy and procedures, SOPs, for instance. So it's really very close. And examples of this, some of the hospitals, in fact, they adopt the same infrastructure, same even the landscape of the hospitals, similar to the North American, like CHOP, or like some of the famous hospitals. It's exactly similar to the same structure, same facility. So again, by doing this, it's similar to what they have in the North American system.
So in terms of the regulatory requirement, so let's take a hypothetical example. We have a sponsor that's interested in doing clinical trials. It's maybe a drug or a device company. What would that regulatory process look like for them? Like, what are the things that they'll need to do to get the clinical trial started from a government approval standpoint?
Excellent question, Kunal. Let me just tell you a little bit background about the regulatory authority we have in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Food and Drug Authority, which is the SFDA, was established fairly recently in 2005, and established, of course, and before that, before the Saudi FDA was established, the Ministry of Health was the governing body for all regulations in the country. Now, being or having established the Saudi FDA, they start to develop their system, recruit people, send out scholars to abroad to Europe and to North America, get their training, and then they get back and then develop the system. So being involved in some of the committees with the Saudi FDA, I know the system that they are adopting. So mostly it's hybrid system between North American and European. European meaning EMA and also MHRA, UK system. Sometimes we use the Australian, the TGA, or sometimes the Anvisa, the Australian, I mean the Brazilian system. So it's kind of hybrid, but majority of the system and the guidelines following the North American guidelines. Now, when it comes to the clinical trials regulations, we don't have a specific ICGCB guidelines. It's almost similar to the international Committee on Harmonization of GCP guidelines E6, and this is what we are adopting and applying for our clinical trial regulations.
Okay. So say if we bring the protocol into the country, does somebody need to like approve the protocol aside from the ethics committee that's in Saudi? Does the government also need to approve the conduct of the study before it can get started?
You mean the study protocol?
The study protocol, yes.
Right. Um, well, normally it's if it's been approved by the ethics committee, and the Saudi FDA will accept that because they rely on the ethics committee on that. So because we know if it's like a sponsored clinical trials, which is like as a multi-center, changing anything in the protocol is or amending a major or having a major amendment. We understand minor amendments, which is acceptable just to customize it to the country needs. But doing major amendments, it means excluding the country from the trial. So everybody is on the same understanding of doing or having no amendments as much as possible, and also accepting the study protocol as is without any changes. So it's not really we did not face a problem with ethics committee or with the Saudi FDA mandating changes or amending the study protocol from the international sponsor.
Okay, so the protocols, the sponsor comes in, they select, the site is selected, and then they submit the protocol to the ethics committee. So are you saying there's still a two-step approval? So once the ethics committee approves it, is there like another rubber stamp approval? Maybe not rubber stamp is not the right word, but there's like another like SFDA approval. Does it need to be sent to like to SFDA?
Absolutely, because Saudi FDA is a regulator. Ethics committee is for ethics, so they need to make sure that it is within the ICGCB guidelines. In addition, just to make sure that the investigational drug being used in this clinical trial will studied and has minimal risk, let's say, to the participated subjects in the study. So they don't have any special requirements. With regards to the submission, in fact, just to expedite the approval, and maybe this is another question for the approval process and the timeline. In order to expedite and shorten the time, they accept the parallel submission, where the sponsor can submit to the ethics committee at the same time can submit to the Saudi FDA. They can both, yes, study it together. However, the final approval from the Saudi FDA will not be granted before the ethics approval. So it's just a matter of time, and it's working very well.
Yeah, what do you have like rough estimate of like for a low risk drug, what that timeline looks like for approvals, both on the ethics and the
Yes, yeah. It is not a secret. I mean, it's published in the Saudi FDA website, and they have mentioned that 60 days to approve any completed clinical trial, and same thing for the ethics committee, another 60 days. So we're talking about between 3 to 4 months timeline. If I mean, most of the time this is the case. Now there are some exceptions that might delay the approval, which I think it's everywhere, is to have discussion about the CTA, which is maybe another step for approving the clinical trial.
yeah, the CTA I'm assuming does not go to SFDA for approval, or does it?
No, it doesn't. However, it is required. They need to see it, but they don't have any say on the CTA. They don't approve or review, but they need to at least see it as one of the essential documents in the dossier when they're applying it to Saudi FDA.
Understood. Is there a checklist, I'm assuming, on the SFDA website that people can look at and kind of understand what are the different things are that are needed to put the dossier?
Yes, absolutely. It's listed there under rules, regulations of clinical trials, and they have their own guidelines even of conducting clinical trials.
So you said we could do parallel submission around 60 days to get SFDA approval, and maybe up to maybe 90 days, between 60 to 90 for the most part, getting the ethics in. So how does somebody go about doing site selection? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, just so if there's a sponsor that's not really familiar with the geography, like where do they start with the site selection process?
Um, Excellent question. Well, one of the policies and that is required in the country is to have. I mean, you have to have a representative in the country, which is doesn't have to be a local or Saudi representative. It can be international. So we have a good number of CROs, international CROs, registered in the country, registered under the Saudi FDA. So the submission has to come through these CROs, or if the sponsoring pharma industry have a local office in the country, they can directly submit it to the Saudi FDA, and they can submit it to the site. So with regards to the site selection, I mean, it's as regular practice in everywhere. You start with the feasibility questionnaire, and then selection of the PI, and then signing the CDA, submitting the protocol, and then it comes the site selection, where the representative will come to the site physically and inspect the sites for the resources and meet with people, and just to make sure that the site is qualified to conduct the study, and meet with the PI as well.
Yeah. So when we talk about like maybe site identification, even before we send the feasibility, are there like certain centers of excellence that like the sponsor can look at and say, okay, here are like the top 20 centers in Saudi Arabia that we can start with, to just kind of increase their confidence in the sites that they are approaching?
Well, I think it's much easier to know which sites are qualified, uh, because we have in fact, and you have visited and participated in the last international clinical trial conference. There are not a lot of sites are qualified to conduct clinical trials, so it's easy to identify the sites. And we are working, in fact, on a national initiative to build the infrastructure, the capacity of other sites, and to expand more on the sites in the country. Not belong to one entity, but many entities like Ministry of Health, like Ministry of Defense, and like the VA in the US, Ministry of National Guard, Ministry of Interior, and so on and so forth. So we are trying our best to upscale their infrastructure to conduct high quality clinical trials. So it is really easy to find out what are the most qualified sites, because it's our few sites are qualified.
I see. So how do I get that list? So if I want to give people that list of sites, then here are the 10, 20 sites that you should start with.
Not really sure if there is a website that you can find this list but I think going through the Saudi FDA website and looking at the registry, their clinical trial registry, you can find out what are the sites registered and doing the majority of sites doing clinical trials. I think this is maybe the best way to find out. Yes, yes, it is available. Open. Yes.
Open public source. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So aside from the Saudi FDA and the ethics committee, is there anybody else that's involved in the approval process of the regulatory documents?
Well, it is not a matter of another body, but the system works like this. All the IRBs, ethics committee in all sites, they are under the umbrella of the National Bioethics Committee. And the National Bioethics Committee have a representative from all sides, where the local committees, local IRB committees are represented in this National Bioethics Committee. The National Bioethics Committee, their mandates just to monitor the performance of all local IRBs, and just to make sure that and they do in fact some audit on the certain IRBs, and they are the one who is like giving the national bylaws for ethical approval for all IRBs. One of the things they also, just to make sure that everybody is following the bylaws with regards to the gene therapy. It is to some extent a sensitive issue, so they want to make sure that it's approved within the guidelines. So just it's not, I wouldn't consider it as approval, rather than just informing them about any studies that involve in gene therapy, to make sure that they are following the bylaws and the guidelines.
So the submission goes to the local IRB, not the central, or not the national. Is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about like medical product, like shipment, like importing medical products into Saudi Arabia for clinical research? What are some of the key, I would say, key terminology people need to be aware of, key forms, key entities that play a role in that?
Well, the regulatory body, the Saudi FDA, made it very simple and easy. So it starts, in fact, from the site by requesting the what they call it, import permit. They just can fill this form. It's just a form to fill and to sign. And there is a condition that upon importing the investigational medicinal product to the country, just to make sure that will not be used until they get the IRB approval and the Saudi FDA approval. Once they sign this document, send it to the Saudi FDA. Saudi FDA will give the permit, import permit, to the site, so the site can share it with the sponsor. sponsor can ship over the IMP to the country, and it's very simple and easy to collect. So it is really a very well established system in place, with a quick process, in fact, without any difficulties or challenges.
Yeah. Do you find there's delays in importation, or do you feel like it's quite straightforward?
It's straightforward. Having the international carrier, in fact, doing this. So we do have the DHL, the FedEx, the Aramex. I mean, the other international, and also the local professional courier to have the this importation.
So, in terms of ethical considerations, such as informed consent, patient safety, data privacy, are there certain aspects of those considerations, different for Saudi Arabia, or things that people need to be aware of? Maybe there's cultural or religious considerations that people from the West need to understand a little bit better.
This is a great question, Kunal, and it is, in fact, as I mentioned, following the same guidelines, the international guidelines. We have the 21 elements for any international informed consent, where you need to include in the informed consent. The only difference is the translation into Arabic, because most of the participants, they don't speak English, so they have to be they need to understand the language in a very simple for lay person to understand the language. And the ethics committee, by the way, they are very, very meticulous about the informed consent and the translation. So fortunately, we have very professional offices for translation, and they are approved to have their translation as an official translation, and it's been accepted. This is it becomes like a normal practice without any difficulties, in fact, in translation of the informed consents.
Sure. Yeah, I think in the United States we do Spanish translations on a lot of studies, and among other languages. So you said there were some official providers of the translations. Can you name them, or kind of who they are?
Well, there are so many. I mean, you can Google them, and
Oh, I see.
it's easy to get. So and there are official, I mean, translator offices in the country, and it's really easy to have access.
I see. So it could be like, yeah, any organization that provides translation services in the region.
Right.
Anything else? Like, I think maybe we could talk a little bit about like what happens when in the month of Ramadan. Like, are there people like still participating in clinical trials for the whole month, or is the country not doing clinical research in that month?
No, of course. Ramadan is similar to other months. I mean, people still active recruiting patients. There is nothing prohibited in terms of the Islamic regulations preventing them from participating in any clinical trials. So it's a regular month, and we don't have any issues or problems with it.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that specifically because I feel like people may be like, well, what if there is like a month that they're not available? Like in France, there's like, it's very hard to do research in the month of August because a lot of people are taking vacations and so on. And even in the United States, I would say, summertime can be a little difficult with patient recruitment. Talk about patient recruitment. Go ahead.
Speaking of which, with regards to the tradition in the Saudi Arabia and Ramadan, some people, they think also from their perspective that the females they are a bit concerned, or maybe there is some restriction of participating in clinical trials. And some in fact, we get some questions from international sponsors when they come for the feasibility site qualification visit. They ask this question, so it might be also it comes in mind. What about participating of females, women in the clinical trials? Are there any restrictions or any tradition in the country? In fact, there is no at all restriction for participating or for allowing females to participate in any clinical trials. In fact, to just have evidence of this, we did a large study, a survey study, around 1,000 plus participants from different regions in the country, and specifically asking about participating in clinical trials. So it's not a clinical research, it's clinical trials. And we even go deep into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and we have a definition of each one. Of course, that the survey was in Arabic language, and it was conducted by professional people. Majority of the participants were female, and in fact the response rate of agreeing to participate in phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials was around close to 70%. It was exactly 69% of Saudi population willing to participate either as a volunteer in phase 1 clinical trials, or if they are a patient in phase 2 and 3. And when we ask about what are their main drive into participating in such clinical trials, you know what, their drive was just to participate in knowledge and help others to discover new drugs. So it was really a humble response that we really admire and appreciate. The community for participating in such trials. So again, even the ongoing clinical trials, the participation between male and female are almost equal.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to our regulatory question that we were on, and I'm just pulling up some notes that I took down when I was at Saudi Arabia a few months ago. I was talking to someone, and they were explaining me there's different agencies, and I know you talked about the MOH and the SFDA, but there's some others like Vikaya, Vaman, CCHI, Saudi Central Health Commission, NIPCO. So maybe can you explain what those terms mean, and kind of, is there something that people need to know as it relates to them?
Let me start. I'm not sure about the first two that you mentioned.
Okay. It's like CDC in the United States, the Vikaya, Vikaya. Is that what it's called? Maybe I have this wrong.
Wiqaya, yes, wiqaya. Yes. Wiqaya it's in Arabic, and this is called considered as a prevention. So it's exactly similar to CDC. So it is in fact a CDC, Saudi CDC, and they call it, instead of CDC, they call it Wiqaya, which is in Arabic means prevention.
Okay. And they're not involved in clinical trials, like unless you're doing a trial with them, they're not really on an industry-sponsored trial. They wouldn't be necessarily involved.
No, not at all. Wiqaya is exactly CDC. So if CDC involved in clinical trials, then Wiqaya will be involved. Same thing for NIPCO. NIPCO is just a national unified formulary system that allowing all hospitals to buy and to do the procurement through the one system in order to reduce the cost and also to standardize the medicinal product used in the country. So has nothing to do with the clinical trials. Having mentioned that, let me mention to you something that is probably not came across during the conference. Well, it came some of them. One of them is the Saudi NIH, SNIH, and Saudi NIH is in the beginning it was established about 3 years ago, but their mandates, in fact, was released and officially announced a year ago. And their mandates, in fact, is as a facilitator, as enabler of clinical trials, and focusing on translational research, which is really something. This is a good news for us, because they are the one. It's a national body facilitating and enabling sites to conduct clinical trials, and maybe because since it is a national body, it means they have the control. on the hospitals, and they can enforce their bylaws for conducting clinical trials, and also on other governmental entity dealing with clinical trials. So Saudi NIH just came late now, but they are doing, in fact, a great efforts and great job for facilitating clinical trials in the country. And you will be seeing soon booming of clinical trials in the country because of the Saudi NIH. So this is one entity. Another entity
And it's
recently also.
government funded, basically, right? Saudi NIH is.
Absolutely. Yes. Similar to the US NIH, similar to the NHS in UK. So very close with regards to the system, with some differences in their mandates. So this is one. Another entity which is also fairly recently established to promote research and to in fact give more attention to research in the country. It's called RDIA, the Research Development Innovative Authority. So what it means and what are their mandates? It's just to support. It's like a sponsoring body for clinical for research, and to make it separate between Saudi NIH and RDIA. RDIA they are doing, or they are sponsoring and funding research related to basic science, not excluding clinical trials. And Saudi NIH will be funding also clinical trials and facilitating the clinical trial conduct in the country.
Yeah. So the RDIA is only basic science, did you say?
Basic science, exactly. Of course, basic science. In addition to other type of research, like in the agriculture, in the economic, traffic, for instance, the population economy, and so it covers all type of research except clinical research and translational research.
That's great. And then what about the insurance organization VAMAN? VAMAN? Is that what it's called?
Yes, that's called, yes, that's dominant.
Are they involved in the clinical trial landscape?
Uh, no, Damen is just providing healthcare to the insured people. That's it. And there are so many other insurance companies, and but it's Damen is like a national insurance body regulating the insurance in the country, but has nothing to do with clinical trials.
Okay, for example, in the United States, when we have people that are over 65, there's a Center for Medicare and Medicaid, CMS, and at one point, and that we like all the clinical trials had to be approved by them in order for sponsors to be able to enroll patients that were 65 or over in research. So otherwise, they wouldn't pay for the services that were rendered to patients in clinical research.
We don't have this system yet. What we have is only uh, insurance certificate. So any clinical trials, sponsored clinical trials, or even investigator-initiated clinical trials, we have to have insurance certificate, and the insurance certificate is to be provided by the insurance company from the sponsor or from the site. This is the only involvement of the insurance in the requirement in the clinical trial.
And it's very standard, I would say, the insurance certificate across even like other countries, not just Saudi Arabia. Like if you did trials in the United States or Europe, you still need that insurance certificate. I actually did a recording with somebody who does insurance for clinical trials. His name is Dan Fault. So I'll link that for people in the podcast so people can go and check out that episode. So going back to, we were talking about ethical considerations, and then I want to touch on like patient recruitment. Are there any specific strategies that you have seen work well when it comes to patient recruitment in Saudi Arabia, and kind of special considerations as they relate to local population and the healthcare system?
I cannot think of any special considerations when it comes to clinical trials. However, focusing on maybe if we can focus on what are the most common areas and maybe let's say the unique therapeutic areas in the country and which might attract the sponsoring company. First of all, rare diseases, rare and genetic diseases are fairly common in our country. Um, and majority, in fact, of patients participating in clinical trials abroad, they are from the country. Being or having the tradition of the high rate of consanguinity in the country and having the disseminated the genetic diseases, rare diseases. This is something that we have to consider. Another also area, therapeutic area, diabetes in general, because the unfortunately the percentage of and prevalence of diabetes in the country is going to be reached 35% by next year, 2025, which is something really not is driving the cost of care to large extent. Another area also the cardiovascular. This is another rich area. We have a good population with regards to the having cardiovascular diseases. It's unfortunate again, but we have this kind of diseases where the good thing about these type of diseases, the database. So the database in the hospitals are very rich and robust, well structured database. It's easy to retrieve and capture. So this is something also good. Uh, One of the areas also it's common in like any other countries is the cancer and the whether hematology or oncology. So colon cancer in males, breast cancer in females are the most common type of cancers, as well as leukemia, of course, with all type of leukemias in the country is fairly common. So these are the most probably therapeutic areas that probably might attract some sponsoring companies and maybe these to conduct clinical trials in the country.
With rare diseases, isn't it like really difficult to know which sites will have eligible patients? I mean, it just seems a really difficult, like it's already very rare, so I'm not sure how it would be. How would, and there's so many different kinds of rare diseases, so how does somebody go about like figuring out which sites to select?
Right. Well, this is very simple, easy, and because uh, not all the hospitals are well equipped and they have all the type of patients, but all the tertiary care hospitals, and it's considered as referral hospitals. So we get referrals from all over the country. Certain hospitals, I would probably consider uh, five or six hospitals are equipped and tertiary care centers, referral hospitals. So it's easy to find rare diseases in those hospitals where they have a good number of patients with rare diseases and genetic diseases.
So we talked about different therapeutic areas where Saudi Arabia might be a great organization or good country to do research. Um, we touched on timelines a little bit. Can we talk a little bit about costs and kind of how that works? Maybe, yeah. Can you shed some more light on the financial side of things?
Um, well, the cost is being like we don't have that rich experience in terms of cost of clinical trials in the country. However, we are trying to establish to the fair market cost with the clinical trials. I think we are we are not very cheap, as well as we are not very expensive. So we are trying to be in the middle. Some hospitals they are charging more overhead cost. Others they are charging less. So the standard cost that most of the sites are charging, it's the standard cost, like IRB fees, submission, the overhead cost, which range between 20% to 40% maximum. The also the startup fees. So these are the regular costs, like any other countries.
Yeah, the regular costs. Yeah, like any other countries. Got it. Okay. And are so aside from the cost, I think a couple other questions I had that I had in mind was: are there certain areas that sponsors should be focusing on more when it comes to doing research in Saudi Arabia? Like, are there things that you're like, oh, you need to pay attention to this? I know this episode is more about like, hey, let's do more trials in Saudi Arabia, but I also want people to know, okay, if you're going to do research, maybe you need to pay some close attention to some areas that are maybe not as well developed as they should.
Well, I cannot think of any other therapeutic areas that probably might attract sponsors. However, just to mention the something that is really booming now, which is the autoimmune diseases. The autoimmune diseases with the novel therapies like the cell and gene therapies, or the monoclonal antibodies, and um, other the other type of gene therapy. I think these are also considered as uh, hot area. Even in our country, it is considered as hot area. And speaking of which, we have the most recent updated, recently marketed medications for these diseases. I mean, our formulary doesn't have one of these things that in our system, which is really we like. Doesn't the drug, even if it's approved today in the US market by US FDA, it can be available in Saudi hospitals, not Saudi market, approved by Saudi FDA, because it takes time. But the Saudi FDA allowing the hospitals to request and to, in fact, ask for importation of the new drug that is recently marketed either in Europe or in the States, to be used in our patients. So having new medications marketed in the Western countries can be also used in the country. So this is just to give you some hints about how advanced our healthcare system is, and also the standard of practice. So we are fairly working in a very high standard, and because of this, applying or using investigational drug in with novel therapies, I think it's really attractive in our sites.
Yeah, that's great. No, I agree with what you're saying, and I personally spent maybe several, maybe at least 4 or 5 hours with a lot of medical students in Saudi Arabia when I was there, and I could tell, like, just having conversations with them, and kind of where, you know, how their learn educational experience has been. I felt really good about the healthcare system, and the work that you guys are doing there. So congratulations to you. So I think what I meant by my question was not necessarily therapeutic areas that people should be looking for, but also, like, should we be paying more attention to monitoring, or should we be paying more, like, focusing on certain, like, maybe we should have a recurring audit of the data that's being collected, because at the end of the day, in any clinical trial, what it really boils down to is the quality of the data. So if the data quality is excellent, then everything is, like, great. I mean, irrespective of the result or the outcome of the trial, right? I think the thing that you can control is the quality of data that gets collected.
Absolutely. We are fully conscious about the quality of data, and the concern by the sponsor of about the quality, and we know that they cannot jeopardize the quality of data, and they cannot accept any deviation or any protocol violation uh, by any means. So we are paying attention to this, and in fact, let me tell you some success stories that we had in the past. One of the studies, without mentioning the name of the study, just to make it general, one of the studies that we have participated in lately, after 2 years of initiating this trial, it was in the cardiovascular, and the inclusion criteria was a little bit tough. They could not recruit many patients in other Western countries. So finally, they include our site. In the beginning, they gave us 25 patients to recruit, and they said, let's test this site. So we recruited the 25 patients in a very short period of time. So they gave us another 25 patients, and we recruited them in another short period of time. So they were really excited. So the local team, they came to the site to do auditing and to just monitor the quality of conduct and quality of data, and they could not find any violation or any deviation from the protocol or observation. So they expand the trial, the number of subjects, into 75. So we did recruited the 75 patients in no time. So at this stage, the global team from that big sponsoring company decided to come to the site. They said there is no way that this site, who participated late, become from the top 5 sites worldwide as a recruitment site. So they came, the global team, to inspect our site, and they were really impressed with the infrastructure, with the team they have met. They could not find any deviation, and everything was perfect in that study. So they gave us an additional 25. We recruited 100 patients. So this is like just to tell you how, I mean, our infrastructure and our robust system works very well, and again, abiding by the study protocol without any violation or deviation. And we have many examples, by the way. This is just one of them.
One of them. Just to keep our conversation balanced, are there any horror stories that you want to share as well, or things that didn't go well?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, yes. One of the things that we fail to recruit, in fact, is finding patients, and we fairly closed the study, closed the site because of failing to recruit patients, and in fact, because of the tough inclusion-exclusion criteria. In our site, I cannot think of any studies that was closed because of integrity of data. And I'm very conscious about this, because I cannot tolerate, as a chairman of a clinical trial department, cannot tolerate any case that they jeopardize or the compromise the quality of data because of whatever reasons. So I cannot think of any cases happen. However, yes, we failed to recruit patients, and the study was closed with zero recruitment, unfortunately. Sometime because of a busy clinician, busy PI, because they are clinician, and the coordinator is again handling many clinical trials. So this is one of the reasons probably they fail to recruit enough patients, or the required number of patients.
I see. So if we talk about like the research coordinator, like resourcing, what does that look like for your site? Like how many studies is a research coordinator generally assigned to?
Yeah, excellent question. Uh, Let me talk about our experience in KAIMRC. And KAIMRC is the King Abdullah International Medical Research Center. It was established in 2007. And when we established the clinical trial, the research center, it was in the beginning of 2007. We did not have enough research, and when we investigate and did the gap analysis and the needs assessment and surveys to the physicians, one of the areas common, in fact, between physicians that they don't have the time, they need somebody to help them to conduct the study. So we start recruiting research coordinators and train them, not only recruit but train. So we train research coordinator, and we hired many, in fact, research coordinators from health science background. So they can be nurses, pharmacists, dentists, physicians, even come to the sites, and we train them. And then the clinical trials increased significantly. So the engine of clinical trials, I think, like any other sites, it's the research coordinators. Having research coordinators, well-trained research coordinators, of course, definitely will help. Um, in terms of the system in the country, what about the career ladder of research coordinators in the country? Yet it's not well developed. So we are now working with the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties to accredit the research coordinators as health science provider working in the health field, to be accredited and to be certified, in fact, as part of the team. So with this, I think we can succeed in recruiting more research coordinators to the sites.
What does your typical day look like? What did you do today?
Okay, good. In fact, today was a special day for me because I had to meet with the one of the big CRO to discuss the feasibility studies that they had, because they are giving a lot of feasibility studies. Some of them struggling with the site, some, I mean, with the PI, some struggling with the sponsor. So my typical day goes with the again strategic planning, following up on some of the issues that is pending for moving up and increasing and recruiting more clinical trials. So when I come every day, I just think about how can I expand and how can I increase number of clinical trials coming not to the site but to the country. So I'm trying to think broadly on how what are the best strategy to recruit more clinical trials to the site. So today we had this discussion with the CRO. Another day we had a meeting with one of the big pharma company, and we decided to have a quarterly meeting to discuss all ongoing clinical trials. And in fact, we set up a goal, a mutual goal for both of us to bring more clinical trials by the end of 2024. We agreed to increase the number of clinical trials by 30%. So I think with this mutual agreement and setting about a goal for by the end of 2024, I think we can achieve it easily if we really work hard for it.
So at KAIMRC, like you're the administrative, you manage all the administration, and then there's an investigator who's also involved. Is that correct? Who's actually responsible for study conduct, or are you the investigator?
Uh, we are overseeing all the process. So we receive the proposal, the study protocol, and we facilitate the approval process through the IRB. And then we also help the PI to conduct the study in a timely manner and to be successful. In addition, we have monitoring service, which is setting up the team for the initiation visit to make sure that they are ready, developing the trial master file, and to make sure that all the delegation book is there and the staff are trained on the study protocol, and they can give the green signal to the for the trial team to start the study. So we are trying to again facilitate and as well as support the conduct of clinical trials.
And then want to talk about like CRO a little bit. So I know you mentioned like you met with the CRO recently. So if a sponsor doesn't have a local office or local staffing, then I guess the only approach that's available to them is to hire a regional CRO to support monitoring in the region. Would that be a fair statement, or are there other approaches?
Well, in fact, yes, of course. Now some of the sponsors they like to conduct their studies directly without having or hiring a CRO. Um, but still, it might be a struggle for some of them. So I think both approaches are acceptable, and from our practice, what we have observed so far, and we communicated this with the sponsoring pharma industry, that communicating directly through the sponsor, it's much easier, much shorter than communicating through a CRO and then the company, especially when it comes to the CTA. So CTA it takes time because the CRO has to go back to the sponsor and the sponsor has to respond, and it takes time. In
I agree.
fact,
Yeah,
so we
I'm working on
prefer.
some projects where we work directly with the sites to do the CTA. Just saves so much effort. You're right. Sorry. Yeah, I'll let you continue. Yeah, so that's kind of your approach that you think is working best.
Right, right. So we are trying our best. In fact, one of the things that, as to be proactive and to shorten the duration of reviewing CTA, we have our own template of CTA templates, and we share it with the sponsor. We share it with the CRO, and we said, this is our template. If you can adopt, if you can make some modification, adjustment before submitting your own CTA. So just look at our template and try to adjust so we can shorten the time instead of going back and forth of statements, changing a few words, and then it takes time. So this is one of the things that we sometimes it helps a lot in shortening the time.
Is this template that for the CTA, is that at a national level or is it only for your center?
Well, one of the recommendation from the Saudi NIH is to have a unified CTA template between all sites. Because imagine conducting a multi-center trial, and when they go to each site, every site will mandate their template. So it is, in fact, it's a bit challenge for the sponsor to make amendment and changes. It will take time. So now as I mentioned, were the Saudi NIH, they are enabler, they are facilitator. So they are working with the sites to have a unified CTA template, and everybody has to accept and to abide by this template, which is going, I think, to be much easier to follow one template among all sites.
Right. Okay, good. That's great to know. Yeah. Um, okay. And then finally, I want to maybe ask you about any misconceptions that people have about doing research in Saudi Arabia. Are there any misunderstandings that you frequently run into?
Well, we kind of elaborate some during our discussion, which with regards to the English spoken language, the infrastructure, the high standard facility, and the also the the well trained physicians. So one of the things that we always mention to the to the pharma industry and the CRO, that it's a differentiating market in our country. We have well-trained physicians. We have a good infrastructure healthcare system. We have the most recent updated therapies to be used in our with our patients, and also using and following the international guidelines on managing patients with regards to the also the the communication between the sites, and also the presence of the EMR system. It exists in almost all hospitals, so it is easy, in fact, to capture data, to retrieve data, and to collect data from the EMR system.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and then just to wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask if there were any recommendations of books or resources that you've read that you would like others to also read and learn from. and that have impacted the way you think?
Oh, this is a great question. In fact, there are so many resources available, but I would probably mention something related to the CRC trainer and also the PI trainers. I think this is something that is really important for the sites to do. Um, with regard to the ICA-GCP guidelines, the E6, I think this is something also to be considered and to disseminate among the site team. One of the things that is really important to share also, trying to work with the changing the culture and try to have implement the what we call evidence-based research practice. So if we succeed really to change the mindset of physicians and to change their practice into most of the to be a research-based practice, always think about research ideas, clinical trials practice, like when you are managing patients. I think this is something that is really going to help a lot to qualify the PIs as well as also bringing more clinical trials to the site.
That's great. So I didn't understand your comment about CRC and PI trainers. Like you're saying, having individuals train PIs and CRCs. Is that what you meant?
Exactly, because one of and this is specifically about our country, uh, because the two main areas that really we need to build human capacity on are the CRC and the PI. So if we succeed really to enrich and upscale the experience, the knowledge, and the skills of CRC and the PI in conducting clinical trials, then we will be in fact having recruiting more clinical trials to the country, and of course will be reflected on the quality of clinical trials that we are conducting. Without having a well-trained CRC and the well-trained PIs on the clinical trial conduct, I think we will fail to recruit and to attract clinical trials to the country.
That's right. Just to clarify my question a little bit more, in terms of other resources that you found useful, like in your career, as you've tried to learn about clinical research or even non-clinical trial related resources that you see yourself referring to, or if there's a book that you've enjoyed reading and you'd recommend others read as well, I think it would be great if you could share that with us.
Well, nothing specific in my mind now to mention. I cannot think of any resources that but I went through like trying to learn the experience from other countries. There are some published white paper and mentioning Poland. I think it's a good experience to learn from. Turkish system also is a good, and there is a white paper written on clinical trials, building the infrastructure in the Turkish system. I think it's something that I have learned a lot. One of the also rich experience that we learn a lot, and we are collaborating with, in fact, the South Korean experience. South Korean experience, unique experience. They are very close to our system. We have learned a lot, in fact, from them. We are collaborating officially with the South Korean, with Seoul National University in particular. We send our people to be trained in South Korea, from research coordinators, from some other pharmacists, for instance, research monitors, nurses as well. We send them over there to learn from their experience. So I think sharing experiences, learning from others, it's a good practice. It's very, in fact, a shortcut for building the experience and the knowledge.
I love it. I love it. Yep. I think it is a shortcut indeed to talk to someone else. The Turkish white paper, where do I get that? Is there a website you can send me afterward?
Yeah, of course, I can send it to you. It's published. I have it in my office, but I can share it with you, of course. Yes.
Okay, I'd like people to link it. It's from the Turk.
Speaking of the Turkish experience, in fact, we are going through similar experience with the Turkish because they have, of course, now if you see the statistics among the MENA region, Turkey is number one top recruiting countries for clinical trials. So I was trying to see what's unique about their system, and they mentioned this white paper. The shortened period of the approval, which is only 1 month for the IRB, for the regulator, is the key to recruit more clinical trials to the country.
Speed. People are willing to. The speed is important for sponsors. I get that.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for such a rich conversation. I really appreciate you being on the show today.
It's my pleasure, Kunal. It's a great experience, and it's really an honor to be on your podcast tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Clinical Trial Podcast. For more exclusive clinical research content to get you to the top of your game, head on over to clinicaltrialpodcast.com.